Come on, y'all. We are back again this week. We've got another 7 round mock draft, and the video that I do every year, in the 7 round mock draft world at least, is always the team that has the number one overall pick. And this week, I am finally going to do that. So, yes, we are running a 7 round mock draft on the Tennessee Titans today. We're going to go back to the normal 7 round mock draft video schedule from this year so far. We're going to look at their roster, what they've gotten free agency so far, stuff like that, talk about their roster. We're going to look at their PFF grades from last year, and then we are going to run 3 mock drafts today with the Tennessee Titans. So, I hope y'all are excited for that. Glad y'all are here, and let's get into that. Over here on Our Lads, like usual, shout out to them. Start out the wide receiver position like we usually do. This Tennessee Titans wide receiver room is rather weak, in my opinion. And, I haven't watched a 7 round mock draft from anybody on the Tennessee Titans. Did I say the Tennessee Titans at first? Did I say the Steelers? I might have. Sorry, my terrible towel is right here in front of me. So I might have accidentally said Steelers there. My bad. Anyways, and if I didn't, then I just look crazy. But yeah, this Tennessee Titans wide receiver room is rather weak. They've got Calvin Ridley, who's, obviously fine, wide receiver. I call him like 1.5s. He's like a one sometimes, but he's more of a two most of the time. But he's their wide receiver one at least. Then you got Traylon Burks, your first round pick in 2022 after you traded AJ Brown to the Eagles, and you're like, yeah, let's go. And like, me personally, I was kind of a Traylon Burks fan coming out of that draft. But yeah, I think a lot of people were, and everybody was very wrong about him. He's just been very, very, very underwhelming to say the least. Then you brought in 2 free agents in James Prochet and Van Jefferson. That's not really moving the needle much. I mean, Van Jefferson is like serviceable, I guess, as a wide receiver, but it's like I'm not excited, and I can say this from experience. I would not be excited if my football team was running out Van Jefferson every week, as a receiver. I know from experience because he was a Steeler last year. James Prochet, again, just kind of like a veteran who has experience, but I wouldn't even know if I'd say James Prochet is serviceable as a receiver. I will say I just think that that's gonna be a need when we get to the simulator here in a minute due to the lack of like talent and depth at the position. Um, like and these other guys that are there, Mason Kinsey, Bryce Oliver, Colton Dowd, Tay Martin, Jaquan Jackson, and Stanley Morgan Jr. It's like all of those guys are very, very underexperienced and, in my opinion, that I know of at least, not very talented. I think maybe Tay Martin's the best one out of that group, maybe. And it's like, on a decently good wide receiver room team, Tay Martin's wide receiver 7 or 8, not 5, you know. Um, maybe 4. Maybe he's better than James Prochet. I mean, I don't know. But moving down to the offensive line, this is the big thing from the offseason so far for the Tennessee Titans. Um, Giving Dan Moore Jr. that 4 year, $82 million contract was really big. And also bringing in Kevin Zeitler, who's been good his whole career, from Detroit to play right guard. Kind of fills out that offensive line in a sense. You're gonna have Dan Moore Jr. and J.C. Latham on opposite sides of each other that tackle. J.C. Latham, their first round pick last year out of Alabama. Your first round pick, Peter Skoronski, from Northwestern in 2023, like 11th overall, I'm pretty sure, is going to be at left guard. And then you've got Lloyd Cushenberry the third, who you got from Denver, I think last off season as a free agent. Like he's like okay, like he's serviceable, I feel like at center, but it's like that's definitely the weak piece of the line at least. Um, JC Latham looked okay as a rookie. And I will say too, like with their depth that they have on their line, Blake Hance, Corey Levin, Nicholas Petit Frere, are all 3 guys I think that have actually like played some significant snaps at some point. I think maybe even Chandler Brewer was starting for them at one point, either within the past 2 years, maybe, or maybe it was last year, maybe. Or started a game. I feel like he started a game or something like that at some point. Something that I'll look at here in a minute when we get over to the PFF grades too. This John Ojukwu over here, right here, number 61, right there in the right tackle depth chart. In very, very limited snaps, I think it was maybe like 100 something. Had a decently good PFF grade. So it's like I think that they have depth at the offensive line. I think if anything that they target in the draft, I think it would be center. And that's really it. And I don't even know if they'd do that. Going to tight end, you got Chig Okonkwo and Josh Wiley. I think both those guys are like, fine, but they're not very necessarily anything impressive. Um, Neither of them great run blockers. Chig Okonkwo has been he's shown flashes as a receiving tight end. But I've never really been impressed by those two guys, and they're both, decently rather young. 2022 fourth rounder in a Okonkwo and 2023 fifth rounder Josh Wiley. Um, but I do think that maybe you could target a quote, I would say younger guy, like just because it's a new draft. Um, Not necessarily saying that these guys are old or veterans or anything, but maybe like a young guy and or maybe somebody that's good at run blocking since neither of these two are great at run blocking. Um, but yeah, quarterback. Let's talk about quarterback. They brought in Brandon Allen and Tim Boyle, both veterans who have started games here and there. Both, you know, not good, but veteran backup guys. Um, I think that I've said this two or three times throughout this draft process now, this draft cycle on the channel, that I feel like even if you draft Cam Ward at number one and you're the Tennessee Titans, I feel like you're not necessarily going to compete for anything and you're going to end up back in the top 10 next year. And if you think Cam Ward's that guy and you're like, well, you know what? We're going to end up in the top 10 and we don't need any of those quarterbacks that are going to be in the class next year. And we're going to take one of the defensive guys or one of the wide receivers because the draft class next year is relatively very deep as of right now. In all aspects, not just quarterback. Um, didn't do that, right? But in my opinion, you play your guy that you traded up for early into the second round of 2023. You play him for one more year. You have two backup veterans that don't care if they go out there and lose. Um, Play those three guys and get Arch Manning or somebody next year, Like, in my opinion, I think that makes the most sense. Now, granted, I'm not really going to get into this part as much that deep, but like some of the quarterbacks next year that are ranked high right now, I'm not too high on, like Drew Aller. Um, so maybe they're the same way. Maybe they're like, well, we like Cam Ward better than Drew Aller, and we might not be able to get Arch Manning, so we're just gonna take Cam Ward now. Okay, fine. You're probably not gonna the odds of you having the number one overall pick 2 years in a row are relatively low, I would say. It's happened before, it's happened in recent years, but it's relatively low. Um, so I get both sides of just take Cam Ward while you're at number one, especially if you think he's the guy. I understand that, and we're gonna run one of those. That's gonna be the first one that we run here. It's the Cam Ward draft. But I just am higher on the class next year than I am right now, and I'm very high on Arch Manning as of right now. I think if you have a chance at Arch Manning, I would take my chance at Arch Manning over Cam Ward for sure. But I digress there. Running backs, you're fine. You've got Tony Pollard, Tajay Spears. Pollard's your guy. He's just going to run the ball 15 to 20 times a game, and he might only get you 30 yards one game, but he might also get you 120 yards one game. He's got a little bit of receiving, threat as well. And then also Tajay Spears, third round pick, 2023 out of Tulane, very good receiving back. So I think you're fine at running back. Go to the defense side of the ball. That interior of the defense line, man. Jeffrey Simmons, T'Vondre Sweat, and Sebastian Joseph Day. Those three guys are good. That's three good football players right there. The rest of the depth behind them, I did notice that Abdullah Anderson in limited snaps didn't have a terrible PFF grade, but really not a ton of depth and experience behind them, behind those three guys. So I do think that could be a target, but I think you're not necessarily looking for a starter in the interior defensive line. Edge rushers, you brought in Draymond Jones from Seattle. You brought in Lorenzo Carter from Atlanta. You've got some young guys like, seventh round pick last year, Jalen Harrell, I think out of Louisville, Ali Gay. There's some young guys there. Khalid Duke, I saw in very, very, very limited snaps, didn't have a bad PFF grade, but still, though, that's probably nothing to really write home about. And then you got Arden Key, who I think is relatively pretty good. Draymond Jones did not have a good year in Seattle last year. Lorenzo Carter did not have a good year in Atlanta last year. So I think you brought in two veteran guys, but I think edge is still very much a need. I don't think there's really too many guys impressive here. Like Arden Key, like I said, I think Arden Key relatively is a good edge rusher, but in reality, he's like, maybe top 30, 40, 50-ish somewhere. He's probably in that 30 to 50 range in all edge rushers across the league. And it's just like, man, my best edge rusher on my team is the 43rd best edge rusher in the league. And it's like, wait, that actually kind of is not that good. So, I think the edge is a very big need for them, and I'll get into that when we get back over to the simulator. Interior backer, they brought in Cody Barton from Denver, which was very much needed because the rest of this room is abysmal. Otis Reese, the fourth, not good. James Williams, the seventh round pick last year, not good. They brought in Curtis Jacobs from New England, never heard of him. Curtis Bolton the third, never heard of him. And then Cedric Gray, I want to save Cedric Gray for last year because I want to talk about him real quick. His fourth round pick last year out of University of North Carolina. I liked Cedric Gray going to the draft. He's a guy that I got to see play in person, and I talked about this last year in videos. He's a guy I got to see play in person. I was on the sideline for that game, UNC versus App, and he just flew around the field, and I was just like, man, this dude's good. He reminds me of just like one of those just high motor like tackling machines. And now, granted, I didn't get to see many Titans games at all last year, to be honest, because they weren't good. I wasn't really paying attention to them. So I didn't really get to see him play any. I would like to go back and watch maybe some like film or tape on him from last year. PFF grade was not good. I think there's still potential there, though. I still believe in him a little bit to be a high motor, like tackling inside backer. But still, though, you've got what, two good inside backers, or sorry, one like good inside backer, and then like one that has some potential, in my opinion, maybe not in a lot of other people's, and then nobody else really that great. Yeah, interior backers definitely need. And then last but not least, get into that secondary, starting at cornerbacks. They brought in L'Jarius Sneed. I think that was also last offseason, and he was not good before injuring his quad and being out for the year. So that's a little worrisome, I guess, technically. Jarvis Brownlee Jr., their fifth round pick last year out of Louisville. He was okay as a rookie. He was fine. But he's one of those guys that I don't think he's not replaceable. Like it's not like, oh, let's draft the corner or sorry, we're not gonna draft this corner because we got Jarvis Brownlee the Jr. No, you know what I mean? Daryl Baker Jr., like, no. Roger McCreary is like serviceable, I guess, but like I, he's not great. It was the second round pick in 2022 out of Auburn. And then, Gabe Jeudy-Lally, and that's literally the only other cornerback they have. I've never heard of that guy. Like, that's a very weak cornerback room, so I definitely think that that's a target as well. And then you've got safeties, last but not least, safeties. You got Amani Hooker and Xavier Woods, who you brought in from Carolina. Both very serviceable safeties, in my opinion. Amani Hooker, actually think is pretty decent. Woods is like fine. And then you also, I noticed when looking at PFF grades before recording, that this Mike Brown guy right here that they got from Cleveland at some point, not a ton of snaps, but like pretty good PFF grade. So I think you're pretty much fine at safety. For the most part. Maybe you could draft one as like a depth piece, but yeah. And then you brought in Johnny Hecker and Joey Sly for special teams units. So that's interesting. Yeah. So that's Tennessee Titans roster depth chart. Let's go over here and look at their PFF grades real quick. Not going to get into too much. I talked about Tay Martin. He has a 91 offensive grade and 4 snaps. That's hilarious. Will Levis, best passer rating on the team, and it's a 54.6. Not great, but like I said, you know, never mind. James Prochet, 16 snaps. Van Jefferson, 57.2, 57.4 receiving grade. Calvin Ridley, like I said, good year from him last year. Traylon Burks, 53.3 receiving grade and 147 snaps. Then you got Tajay Spears, definitely the receiving guy. 68 receiving grade. Troy Barr, 73.5 rush grade, not bad. Josh Wiley, this is what I was talking about earlier. I think this is run block right here. Yeah, run block. Josh Wiley, 49.5, 36 from Chig Okonkwo. Receiving grades, though, 69.4 and 65.4. Not bad from those two guys, I guess, on that end. Lloyd Cushenberry, not a great year last year, 55.4 grade. Like I said, I think he's a guy that you could look at replacing potentially, or at least drafting somebody, a rookie to kind of sit behind him. Peter Skoronski, very good pass blocking year last year, not great run blocking at all. 67.3 to a 54.3, a 22-point difference there. I will say Peter Skoronski though. I did look at his like game chart and stuff like that. He did pick it up though later on in the year. So I will say that maybe that's something that he's gonna have momentum going into next year with. Kevin Zeitler an 86.5 last year. Blake Hance 97 snaps, but 67.4 pass block grade last year, not terrible. Whoever this guy is, do not let him on the field. 7.2 pass block grade. Oh my goodness. Um yeah, JC Latham, I mean, pass block 76.8 is not terrible. 57 run block, though. I mean, as a rookie, I feel like you got to look at that and be like, you know what? That's not terrible. Dan Moore Jr., 66.9 pass block, 60.9 run block. Nicholas Petit Friere, yeah, no. And this was my guy, John Ejukwu, I was talking about. 69.4 pass block, or sorry, offensive grade. 68.4 pass block, 68 run block, and 264 snaps. So yeah, that's interesting. Then we go over to the defense side. Daryl Baker Jr. That's my bad. I said Daryl Baker Jr. was not great. I think I might have said that. He's actually their best corner technically. That's my bad. I do still think corners a need though. I do want to put that out there. Jarvis Brownlee Jr. 55.9 coverage as a rookie. It's like, okay, not great, but that doesn't mean he's necessarily bad. I don't think. L'Jarius Sneed, yeah, 36.8 coverage grade before getting hurt last year. That's 301 snaps. Wow. Or sorry, 168 coverage snaps. Roger McCreary, 58.4. Run defense was pretty good though, not gonna lie. Xavier Woods, okay year last year. Here's Mike Brown. I was talking about 384 snaps. He had a 69.2 grade, 65.5 on the runs defense. 67.6 on his coverage grade and 214 snaps. Monty Hooker, good. Otis Reese, like I said, not great. Curtis Jacobs, okay, that's why I've already. Cedric Gray had a 36.8. Ugh. He didn't only play 48 snaps. Cody Barton, really good run defense grade. Everything else is good except for his coverage is not great. And then this also about like DeAndre Sweat, 67.2. Sebastian Joseph Day, 70.3. Jeffrey Simmons, 80.2. What an interior defensive line that they've got. And Khalid Duke, I said like very limited stats. He played 12 snaps, 80.3. Pass rush, though. Okay, 77.5 pass rush grade on 3 snaps. On 3 snaps. Lorenzo Carter, oof, yeesh. Jalen Harrell, even worse. Literally ranked last at PFF. Oh my gosh. He was out of Louisville though, right? I said that earlier. No, Michigan. That's right. Who's the Louisville guy I'm thinking of? Ah, man, I'm not sure. Draymond Jones, yeah, 54.3. I mean, pass rush 65.9, though. I guess that's really not bad. Everything else was just awful. And then Arden Key, yeah. So that is the Tennessee Titans. Let's go back over here to the mock draft simulator. And let's get into this draft. We got 7 rounds. We got the Titans. We got the sliders where we usually put them at for the 7 round mock drafts. And let's do this thing. So, first mock draft. This is the Cam Ward mock draft. The official needs list for the Tennessee Titans that I have written down here in front of me is the following. In no particular order, right now, at least. Quarterback, wide receiver. I have a question mark on center. I have a question mark on a blocking tight end. I have IDL depth, edge, corner, secondary depth, and interior, uh, sorry, inside linebacker. I was gonna say interior linebacker because I'm used to saying IDL, interior defensive lineman. That's my bad. In order, biggest needs. I have edge one, quarterback two, cornerback three, wide receiver four, and interior linebacker five. Ah, I said it again. Inside linebacker five. That's my bad. I might actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm actually gonna switch that. I'm gonna say cornerback's actually fourth. I'm gonna say wide receiver three, especially for bringing in Cam Ward. All right, so let's get this thing started. We're gonna go with Cam Ward in this first draft at number one overall. I think that I think everybody kind of knows this anyways. I think it's down to Cam Ward and Abdul Carter. Me personally, I would take Abdul Carter. I think everybody knows that's where I kind of stand at right now, but I do think it's probably gonna end up being Cam Ward as of right now. Second round, sitting on the board. Shador Sanders, first pick of the second round. Interesting. Second round, sitting third pick, 35 overall. And they do have, by the way, they have 8 picks. They have 135, 103, 120, 141, 167, 178, and 188. So they have 8 total picks, but all within the top 100. I think second round, I think this is where you got to start looking receiver, corner, edge rusher. Receivers are fine. I just think that there's better receiver, or not better receivers, sorry, but I think there's good receivers that you can end up getting later on. I think the edge rushers are going to be at least one that's probably still sitting here that's decent. I know a lot of people like Braden Swinson now. I haven't really got around to watching him yet, but I do am interested in him at least. And then also, like I said, cornerback as well. This is probably gonna be the most talent, in my opinion, there is. Trey Amos, Maxwell Harrison, Savon Revel, Darian Porter. But I think that getting an edge rusher right here is definitely a move. I like Josiah Stewart a lot. I think I probably like him the most out of this group that's left. And he's really the last guy, maybe Jordan Burch actually, probably the last guy after this, or maybe I'd be fine with David Walker, but I just don't think that you're going to get any of those guys at 103. So I do think it's important to go ahead and take this position now, especially considering I have it as the biggest need. I'm going to go Josiah Stewart at pick 35. The edge rusher out of Michigan. Very, very impressive when I watched him. Because I was like watching Mason. It was actually funny because I was watching Mason Graham and I just see this edge rusher just keep on winning reps, and I'm just like, who is this guy? And I figured out it was Josiah Stewart. David Walker is still here, but that's fine. I think Tez Johnson's probably the move. I just saw his name pop up. Because he's really probably the last receiver I feel super comfortable with. Um, well, not, I mean, not super comfortable with, but I don't know. I should have worded that, but probably should have worded that a little differently. Zy Alexander, Kobe Bryant are both still here. I'm gonna hope that Kobe Bryant is sitting there when I get here at 120 and 17 picks. I'm gonna go ahead and take Tez Johnson because I figure he would go off the board before then. Mello Dotson did go off the board, but did Kobe Bryant? He did. So that means I'm still gonna look corner. I'm just gonna go Zy Alexander, the cornerback out of LSU. Pretty good year last year coverage wise, 81.8. 6'2", 194. I think his 40 time wasn't bad either. So yeah, we're gonna take Zy Alexander, the cornerback out of LSU there at pick 120. Pick 141. We've got our quarterback, we've got our wide receiver, we've got our corner, and we've got our edge rusher. I think you look interior backer now. I think there's definitely gonna be some talent here. Most of the interior backers I like later rounds though are gonna be off the board. Except for Cody Simon. Cody Simon is there. Jalen Walker is a guy that I do like a lot as well. Late, like, seventh round, sixth round, seventh round guy. We're gonna go and take Cody Simon while he's sitting right there. And then we've got 3 picks left where I think you can target, maybe a tight end, probably some interior defensive line depth, and then probably just some corner or safety depth. I think you just kind of go BPA here. Seth McLaughlin is still here. He's a guy when watching him, he's actually not terrible, and I'm actually going to take him. That's going to be 2 Ohio State players taken in a row by me, but I'm going to take him due to the fact that I think that center could be a target for them in this draft. Callahan's calling card for most of his career, or really all of his career, has always been his like offensive line, and how good of an offensive line coach he is. So I think that maybe he could target offensive line, knowing that Lloyd Cushenberry III is maybe not the correct answer at center for the future. Sitting here at 178, we've got two more picks left within 10 picks of each other. I am going to target a tight end here. I did write down some guys before the draft, some of like the best run blocking tight ends in this class. And the only one, or the two that are still here that I would say consider are probably Jalen Conyers out of Texas Tech. He had an 80.1 run block grade last year, and then Oronde Gadsden the second out of Syracuse. He had a 66 run block grade, but he's a guy that I'm really high on. Really good athlete too. I think you could get a dual kind of thing from him. So I'm gonna go ahead and take him. You know, a little bit of run blocking, but also a receiving threat as well. And then last but not least, we're here. The only position that I have written down as depth that we have not taken is IDL depth. So I'm gonna go look at it, see who's here. Um, Probably Howard Cross the third or Thor Griffith. I think I've kind of known if y'all been around here, I'm higher on both those guys than most. I'm going to take Thor Griffith out of Louisville. That's not going to get a good grade. This draft is not going to get a good grade by PFF. I can go and tell you that right now. Due to me kind of reaching, quote, reaching on some picks, I want to take guys that I'm comfortable with, guys that I've watched, guys that I kind of like, over the guys that I'm not too sure about because I don't want to be one of those guys that comes on here and starts yapping about a player that I haven't watched or that I don't know who they are and be like, oh yeah, this guy's good because so and so said he's good. You know, like I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be that mock draft YouTuber. Rondé Gadsden, Thor Gifford, both Fs. I love it. Thank you, PFF. D minus from Josiah Stewart. Hey man, sometimes you got to reach on people. So first mock draft Tennessee Titans. We go Cam Ward, number one overall. Josiah Stewart at pick 35 out of Michigan. Tez Johnson, pick 103 out of Oregon. Zy Alexander, pick 120 out of LSU. Cody Simon, pick 141 out of Ohio State. Seth McLaughlin, pick 167 out of Ohio State. Ronnie Gadsden the second, pick 178 out of Syracuse. And Thor Griffith, pick 188 out of Louisville. I love it. I love it. Thank you, PFF. C minus. I love that. Let's go back. Let's do it again. Why don't we? We got the Titans selected 7 rounds, got the sliders where we want them. Start the draft, and y'all know where this one's going. My guy, Abdul Carter, pick number one overall by the Tennessee Titans. So now we go edge rusher first round. So this is where it gets interesting. Could you target a QB here? Now, Jackson Dart's still going to be here due to PFF, how they have him ranked. Shedeur Sanders is still here. And I do think that if this was the case, if this is actually how the draft falls right here, they take Abdul Carter at number one. Cam Ward doesn't go to 7 to the Jets. That's interesting. And this is how the draft board looks. This is an interesting draft after Ted McMillan all the way at 14 to the Colts. Steelers Jalen Walker. Okay. All right. That would be weird, but okay. I'm not necessarily opposed to it. We're going to take Shedeur Sanders. I think that could very much be the case if that's what it looks like. If that's what the board looks like, and the Tennessee Titans are sitting there at pick 35, and they took Abdul Carter or whoever, right, in the first round, and they're like, man, Shedeur Sanders is still here. I think they would take him. I do think they would take him. So we've taken an edge rusher. We've taken a quarterback. I think you look at receiver corner now. Tez Johnson, Isaiah Bond sitting here. I just don't know if Isaiah Bond would be a move for you. You know, 5'11", 180. I mean, Calvin Ridley, Tez Johnson and Calvin Ridley. Oh, I said Tez Johnson. I just said I don't know if Isaiah Bond would be the move here, but him and Tez Johnson are essentially the same player. Calvin Ridley is, I don't know. I feel like you need a physical guy potentially. So maybe Tez Johnson is not the best pick. Pat Bryant would be a physical guy for sure. So we're gonna reach a little bit, I think, and take Pat Bryant. Let me look at what corners are here. Um, oh, Kobe Bryant, Jacob Harris still here. I'm gonna actually take Kobe Bryant instead and hope that Pat Bryant is still on the board here at 120, which he should be, I would think. He is. I'm gonna take Pat Bryant out of Illinois. So we got a quarterback, edge rusher, a wide receiver, and a corner. So I think we do the same thing here again. Zy Alexander is still here. Ooh. You know what? I'm gonna switch it up. I was gonna say let's do the same thing that we did last draft, and I was gonna go take an inside backer, probably Cody Simon again. I'm actually not going to do that. I'm down between taking a different tight end or taking Zy Alexander. I do kind of like Zy Alexander. And I think that could be an upgrade and not necessarily an upgrade in that receiving room at least, but it could be a guy to put in there. Not receiving room, sorry, cornerback room. I'm actually not gonna do that. I'm gonna I'm actually take Benjamin Urasek, the tight end out of Georgia. Pretty good run blocking tight end, decent receiving threat. I'm gonna do that just to be fun and try to switch it up here. Now let's go see what linebackers are here. No way Zy Alexander's still here, right? He would have been on the big board actually, yeah. So he's not here. Now I did say I want to switch it up, be different. If Cody Simon's here again, then I'm gonna take him. He's not. So I'm gonna wait on back. I'm gonna wait on interior backer. Let's look at IDL depth. There's nobody I'm really comfortable with. That's probably just gonna end up being Thor Griffith again. What safeties are here for secondary depth? Caleb Ransall's here. I don't think he's the worst pick. Seth McLaughlin's here again. Tyler Cooper's here. He's a guy that I've liked. Kyle Mun I can never Munungai is here. He's interesting. I'm gonna take Tyler Cooper out of Minnesota. That's just gonna be an offensive line depth thing. Maybe he can play safe. Maybe he can play center. Um, I'm gonna take Caleb Ransall. Since I was considering Caleb Ransall last pick, I'm gonna take him here. And then this is gonna be a huge reach, but I gotta take at least one backer. It's gonna be a huge reach in PFF boards thing, at least a little bit. But I do like the Jalen Walker, the other Jalen Walker. Not the Georgia one, the Indiana one. That's an inside backer as a little bit. Like I said earlier, as a later round guy, I'm not saying like, oh, this Jalen Walker's interior backer four. No, I'm saying like he's a guy that I wouldn't mind my team targeting, on day three, like later day three. This PFF mock draft gets us a B plus due to the first two picks, I think. We get Abdul Carter at 1, Shedeur Sanders at 35, Kobe Bryant at 103, Pat Bryant at 120, Benjamin Urasek at 141, Tyler Cooper at 167, Caleb Ransall at 178, and Jalen Walker, Indiana Jalen Walker at 188. And then last but not least, we're gonna run this one a little quick. This is the trade down draft. I think you kind of know where we're going with this one. New York Giants are going to come up and they're going to give us 365 and a future third for one. That might actually even be. Oh, I do that every time. I do that every time. All right, let's see what we could get. Can we get 3 and 34 and like a future fourth? We can. I don't know really what the package would be this year. I should have looked up the pick value chart. Um, Due to the draft class being a little down. Um, but they're gonna take Cam Ward. Mason Graham's gonna go second overall. So we're actually gonna have our choice between Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter here at 3, which I did not expect. I was gonna expect Cam Ward, Abdul Carter, and then I was gonna actually either mess with Travis Hunter or trading down again. And you know what? I want to make this fun, actually. I do want Travis Hunter, but I'm gonna make this fun. I'm gonna actually who would come up here? The Panthers, maybe? 857 and like 140 or 3. So I'm gonna actually make this really fun. We're gonna sit here at 8, and we're gonna take Tedero McMillan. Now hold on. We're at 22. We're gonna come up for 22. We just acquired all these draft picks. We're gonna give up 35, which are original, 103 and 167 for 22. No, I did it again. No, I always do that. I don't know if that trade would have got accepted anyways. So we are sitting here at 34 and 35 then, I guess, with two back-to-back picks. Man, I wanted to go up and like get like somebody fun. Like who was still on the board there? Like Luther Burden was still on the board. That'd have been cool. I mean, we did already take Tate McMillan though, so I probably would have taken him. Who's somebody like cool that was on the board? Like Colson Loveland would have been cool. All right. Anyways, we're gonna take guys of our choices here, which are gonna be Jaden Higgins. No, I already took Tate McMillan though. All right, who cares? You know what? We're overloading the wide receiver room, and we're gonna go get Shedeur Sanders again, and then we're gonna pause the draft real quick. Simone Rebel did go. Trey Amos did go. Maxwell Harrison is still on the board. And we're gonna come up here to 42 with all these picks we acquired. We're gonna trade 57, 140, and 178 from 42 and a future 6 from Denver. Really, 10% chance of getting accepted. Okay. So what about 140 and 167 and a future fourth? No, we're gonna force it to get it through. We're gonna trade 57, 140, and 167 and a future fourth for a future sixth and 42 here. No way, man. And Maxwell Harrison goes. I can't believe I just did that 3 times in a row. Darian Porter's still here. That's fine. We'll take him. All right, we're gonna try this one more time. We have acquired all of these picks. We're gonna try to trade up to the end of the second round with all these picks that we acquired. And we're gonna send 103, 141, a future fourth for 64 and a future seventh. No, we're gonna force it. Why not? I just want to trade up. Thank you. Finally, I did the right thing. I want to trade up and take somebody fun. Okay, so we've got Ted McMillan, Jaden Higgins, Gary Porter, Shedeur Sanders. We don't have an edge rusher, and guess who's sitting here? Josiah Stewart. We're gonna take him at 64. All right, finally, this is the fun draft. This is the fun draft. This is very unrealistic, but this is the fun draft. Can't wait for somebody like to watch this and get mad and be like, in the comments, be like, bro, that last draft was so unrealistic. They would never do all those things. Titans would never trade up. Guys, we're just having fun here. All right, we're just having fun. All right, we've got our quarterback. We've got our wide receiver. 2 of them, to be exact. We've got our corner. So I think and we've got our edge rusher. I think you target interior backer, maybe IDL depth here, kind of get like a good player. Um, Interior backer wise, Barrett Carter's here, who didn't have a great year last year, but I do like him. Not too high on some of those guys. I think Jamari Cardwell's okay. I'm gonna actually take Jamari Caldwell out of Oregon. Hopefully Barrett Carter did not go. He didn't. We're gonna take Barrett Carter here. Okay, all right. So we've got our quarterback, 2 wide receivers, we got a corner, we've got an edge rusher, we've got an interior backer, and we've got an interior defensive lineman. So I think you can target tight end, secondary depth here, center maybe. We've got 3 picks left. I think you can maybe even target a second edge rusher, depending on who's there. Is there anybody I'm familiar with that I kind of like? Um, Johnny Walker, but he's down there. He's like the 7th round guy, like Jalen Walker is for me. Um, Tight end wise, yeah, guys that I'll take at some point. I mean, all these 3 picks we have are within 20 picks though, so that's funny. Linebacker, uh, because we already took Barrett Carter. Double up with Cody Simon maybe, or just take Seth McLaughlin. We're just gonna take Seth McLaughlin again. Speed that up a little bit. And honestly, you know what? I'm just gonna speed it up. I'm gonna do the same thing I did earlier. I'm actually take Conyers this time, actually, just to switch it up. We'll take Conyers this time, and then I'm gonna look at safety, and I'm gonna go down here, reach, and I'm gonna take. Oh, I was gonna take R.J. Mickens, but I'm actually not going to. I'm gonna actually take. I'm gonna take Fintrell Cypress the second out of Florida State. Why not? Just because, and that is the third 7-round mock draft for the Tennessee Titans. We took, after trading back from 1 and picking up 334 and a future fourth, and then trading back again and picking up an 8, 57, and 140, we took Ted McMillan. We then took Jaden Higgins, who, because we had forgot we'd already taken a wide receiver. We were going to take Shedeur Sanders, but we got him anyways because we had 2 picks. We also tried to trade up into the first round once, and that did not work. Took Darian Porter after we tried to trade up for Maxwell Harrison, and we messed it up again. Then we traded up 103, 141 at a future fourth. So that would not work in real life, but I forced it just so we can get the thing going. 64 and a 7th. I could have worked that out somehow, but I just didn't feel like doing the math on everything there. Josiah Stewart, Jamari Cardwell, Barrett Carter, Seth McLaughlin, Jalen Conyers, and Fintrell Cyphers II, who got an F. Overall draft grade, we got an A. Let's go. Thank you, PFF, for the A grade on our 3 trade, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 pick mock draft. I love it. Hey, man, That's what I'm gonna start doing. Every single third mock draft and the 7 round mock draft, I'm just gonna do something like that and have some fun with it. But yeah, man, I appreciate y'all stopping by. I appreciate y'all watching, and I appreciate all the love and support on my videos each and every week. And yeah, hope you enjoyed it. Hope you come back next week for the next video. And I'll see you next time. Peace.